When I was a kid, my grandmother would sometimes say to me, Dinesh, if you do that, I will give you one tight slap across your face. That was her actual quote. It got my attention. Well, the Supreme Court has given one tight slap across the face to the Biden administration. And this is in its lawless attempt. This is the Biden administration's lawless attempt to try to get renters across the country not to pay their rent. So we're talking here about what is called the eviction ban. So the Biden administration decides that if you're a landlord and your renters aren't paying, you can't evict them. Why? Because you've got to recognize that we're in a pandemic. Seemingly they're suffering through the pandemic. You're not. And so we'll let the price fall, not on us, not the government. We're going to let the price fall on you. No rents for you. Now, when we think of landlords, we sometimes think, oh, well, this guy's a slumlord who has 100 different tenements. No, the ordinary landlords in America, for the most part, are themselves middle-class guys. These are people who invest in real estate in part because it gives them an income that's their business to try to get by. Here's a good example. This is Ryan David. He lives in New York. He bought 3 rental properties in 2017. His expectation was to get $1,000 a month in rent from each of them. And he thought, wow, that's going to give me $3,000 a month. And now, under the Biden administration's eviction ban, his renters decided, hey, we're protected. No need to pay. And so this guy's unpaid rent has been piling up. And this is what's happening to landlords. Now, a lot of these landlords are under pressure, so what do? They put their property on the market, and then huge real estate conglomerates, huge Wall Street firms swoop in and buy these properties. So what's happening here is it's a transfer of wealth away from small businesses and small landlords toward giant corporations that seem to want to convert all of America into sort of a rental scheme with handsome profits to be made at the corporate level. Now, the Biden administration knew that this eviction ban could not stand up legally. Biden as much as said that. But what he basically said is, listen, we might be able to delay it a little bit longer, so let's get the CDC. See, what they did here is it wasn't that the government itself, the White House, they didn't issue an executive order. They tried to cover this up by pretending like it's a CDC mandate. The CDC thinks that it's going to be very good to curtail the virus for renters to stay put, to stay just where they are. Because after all, if they're put on the street, who knows how quickly they could spread the virus. Now, this fraudulent scheme was quickly exposed and shot down by the Supreme Court. I want to just read a line or two from the Supreme Court decision, written, I believe, by Kavanaugh. By the way, this was a 6-3 decision. All the conservatives on one side, all the liberals on the other side. And before I get to Kavanaugh, Justice Breyer falls hook, line, and sinker for the good old CDC line. He goes, he includes a chart in his decision about the rising Delta variant. And he says, oh yeah, we cannot have these evictions because it's going to have serious health consequences. Here's a judge supposed to apply the law. He seems to be indifferent to the law. He makes himself into a public policy expert, Dr. Fauci #2. But the majority of the court is not fooled. And they basically say this. They say, number one, the applicants, which is to say the landlord association, this is, by the way, the Alabama Association of Realtors, have a substantial likelihood of success on the merits, meaning they're going to win this case. It's difficult to imagine them losing because you can't have a market system of contracts where basically you just let people get out of their contracts just because the CDC says so. And now the Supreme Court admits the CDC does have, quote, broad authority to fight the virus. But the court is clever enough, the majority, to look and see what that means. And they say, listen, the second sentence of this government provision for the CDC makes it very clear what this broad authority means. Here's what it means. Inspection, fumigation, disinfection, sanitation, pest extermination, and destruction of contaminated animals and articles. So it was apparently under that authority that the CDC decided, well, you know what? Let's just make a rule that landlords cannot evict tenants. And the court goes, that authority is not in the law. So if Congress wants to pass a law that says basically tenants don't have to pay, do it. But Congress had a chance to do it, didn't do it, doesn't have the support to do it, and therefore the Biden administration, think about how many fronts, by the way, from the border to the eviction ban, the Biden administration, lawlessness on all fronts. And it's almost like the Supreme Court has a full-time job shooting these lawless thugs down on one issue after another.